All right, so we can call it to order, and we do have a quorum now. I'd like to have you guys checked out the minutes from the January 26th meeting and the February 16th regular meeting, or sorry, special meeting that Lori sent out?
I have.
All right. Anybody have any concerns about approving those?
No.
No. Lori, do we have to do like a formal? I guess we do. Randy,
I approve both sets of minutes.
All right. Cindy.
Wait, hang on. Can you do a motion and a second first?
Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
I second.
Excellent. So we have Randy, you're a yay. Cindy, you are a yay.
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
I
And Marcy?
I approve.
Yay. Yes.
All right. Unanimous. All right. So the bulk of the conversation for the meeting today is hopefully to come up with, if not one, maybe 2 or 3 ideas of content for the speaker or the event occurring late September, early October on a Thursday afternoon. Some of the things that came out of the last meeting were ideas for content. They needed to be fun. They needed to be a hook. It needed a hook, and we need a solid speaker. Does anybody have any ideas of topics or speakers or activities for the that event?
I'll just say I regret that neither Jessica nor JD could be here. Can anyone, maybe Becky, I don't know if you or not, give us an update about the chamber's plans? Because I think we were talking about a segue of their plans. Can we share anything on that?
I'm no longer in the know because I rolled off the board in December. So unfortunately, I do not have that information. I think Jessica will start back working in a few weeks, but I think she's out for a little bit.
Yeah. I can reach out to JD even this afternoon or tomorrow morning to see if he has an update. My understanding was that was with Jessica's being out, that was kind of put on hold in terms of firm decisions, but I don't know. I'll double check with JD, see if I can get a formal answer from them.
Yeah.
Was your thought that our topic would feed into theirs?
Well, we talked about that, about a sequencing of events. If they were going to do some sort of a after hours fun thing that we could coincide with that, I thought. I think that was one of the ideas that we had started to coalesce around. Yeah, that's why I bring it up.
Okay.
Becky, did you have any reach out to Leanne and kind of run this whole concept up the flagpole and see what her thoughts were?
So I really, at the end of the day, I think we're talking about 2 different things. So, what Leanne is kind of running with on behalf of the town is a completely different concept that would really be more of like an artisans market. There's a number of them around Charlotte, but I think it's like First Thursdays, the artisan pop-ups, what that kind of vision was, but on steroids, and probably a monthly, white tents and lights and that kind of ambiance that you see in some other places. So that's really where she's going with that concept for the town. In talking with her and talking with Jessica, I think Jessica had just reached out to Leanne for it's almost like a sounding board, just kind of general ideas. And So Leanne had really just shared her thoughts related to having a hook with whatever it is that the chamber is trying to do related to their business expo. And so that was, I think, where a lot of this conversation with this group had focused on before, was how does the chamber's business expo maybe alter a little bit in order to a more engaging event for the community. I think those are all kind of completely separate conversations from what this group is attempting to do that may coordinate timing wise with what the chamber is offering from its business expo. But I think this group's focus has always been a bit more educational, business summit. Well, I guess we call it the business summit, but that, that kind of, come and learn, lunch and learn kind of an environment that is, I think, going to be a little bit different than what the chamber is wanting to do. So I think there's still opportunity to coordinate. But I guess what I would encourage this group to do is to make sure that what we're involved in with EDAC is sort of fulfilling the mission of EDAC. If it happens to coincide with the chamber and we can make it one bigger, grander event, that's awesome. But I just want to make sure that the mission of this group doesn't get lost in, tents and favors on tables and things like that. That might be a different initiative at the end of the day.
I think to that point, I think we can, I don't know how closely our topic needs to align with what they're doing.
The theme we had talked about was the idea of Matthews is open for business, and we're going to celebrate business in Matthews. And it could be educational. It could have an educational bent to it, as well as the fun way businesses are interacting and combining the two. I'm concerned about the separate events, which have been separate before, but the expo has been in March and the summit's been in the fall. So they were not even perceived to be the potential of putting them together. Here, they're both going to be in the fall. It's like, are you going to be splitting your market here of people who are likely to attend? Some will do one and some will do the other, but few will do both.
Yeah,
that's a perception. Cindy, what are your thoughts on some of this? Unmute, my friend.
Actually, I liked it better when you didn't hear what I was saying. I'm grappling with the theme. Not that open for business is a bad theme, but I'm trying to figure out what we can offer the business community versus we're open for business. Does that make sense? I mean, aren't we trying to offer them some knowledge or something like that? And who would we get as a speaker?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think the open for business came from when it was going to be a joint thing, because we thought people would be walking around right after our program or something like that. I don't know, but that's sort of my feeling on it.
I think it's still, the underlying message could be that open for business, but I don't think it has to be the title, right, of what we're doing.
No, I wouldn't, and I don't think it has to be the title either. But we talked about the summit, an educational moment of time with businesses, and then we go to the expo fun, the white tent lights, and so on. So I was enamored by that, but I am concerned about two different events to the business community within 2-3 weeks of each other. Otherwise, If
It would be
they're gonna pursue
2 or 3
the
days of
expo,
each other.
yeah,
Right?
split messages and communications, and okay, which one is which? I got the communications through my Chamber of Commerce on both of these events. Which one? Are they the same? Or are they different? I just see the potential for that.
I think they're just totally different events, though, right? I mean, it's not
Well,
even.
potentially, yes.
It seems like there could be playing into two different audiences.
I think we stick with ours being what it's always been, right? I mean, the lunch and learn kind of event. But perhaps I think
we take lessons learned from what it's always been before and do something different. Our attendance was not so great. I don't think when we did this in the fall of 2019, which seemed like ages ago.
I think we still, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I still think that everything will fall into place if we could figure out the hook.
Yeah.
And we don't have a hook.
I guess the question is, who do we want the audience to be? Do we want them to be individual small business people? Do we want them to be, I think that's part of it, because who is going to appeal to me is probably dramatically different than who's going to appeal to, whoever the manager is running the Kroger facility.
Yeah, I think my perfect, guest or what have you, attendee would be a business owner, preferably one that hasn't decided to come here yet, right? Like, or to Matthews. So then they inherently see that we are, EDAC is providing value through education for whatever that is. The 2 days later, there's a chamber expo or whatever that they were looking at doing, right? So then they get the idea, the overarching message that Matthews is open, right? And Matthews is a place to move their business. I don't know that to me, it doesn't need to be like a manager or I don't think we're going for them. Or even somebody, it could also be somebody who's already here, right, in Matthews.
But you're talking about a speaker to market to that speaker versus we still need to consider who do we want to be, who do we want to come to the room to listen to that speaker? So if we want the speaker to be somebody who we want to get here just so that they might choose Matthews.
I'm not talking about the speaker. I want the person in the room to be somebody, a business owner versus a manager, and where they're from could either be here in Matthews or coming out of an incubator and trying to figure out what town to go to, right? To move their business into. I haven't said anything about who the speaker should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood you.
Yeah. I don't know who the speaker should be. I think that comes all nearly last, right? But I think we should be going more towards business owners than employees or managers or.
Is there, and I should know, I don't know, is there a hygge? I know there's not a hygge, but is there a hygge-esque place in Matthews in the city limits?
I don't think it's in the city limits. It's just north on Independence.
Help me, Marcy. What is that?
Hygge is like one of the big co-working spaces in town.
Oh yeah, there is one. Yeah, there's one in town. It's not huge. In what's it called? It's a Nexus? Church trying to be a WeWork.
Nexus.
Oh, yeah.
Because that might be the thing, is to talk to, like, it might be interesting. So the guy who owns Hygge, for instance, is a guy named Garrett Tichy, who's a great guy. To talk to him about, like, what does he think that would be of interest to his tenants? And, because now Hygge's got 4 locations. and none of them are in Matthews, but he certainly knows a lot of the. You've got them. You've got the one that's in Plaza Midwood that I'm looking at and blanking on their name. But if you're saying you want to appeal to the folks who are now tenants in those spaces, the folks that are running those spaces may have kind of a feel for what they would be looking for that they don't provide necessarily already in their locations. Because part of the co-working thing is that you do have speakers come in and talk about stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
And that may be the thing too, is maybe we take it to them. Maybe it's not bringing somebody in from out of town, but it's, preparing some kind of cool presentation about doing business in Matthews that we take out to all the hookahs and the WeWorks and everything else.
Do you guys have any, because I know, is it Venture Prize out at UNC Charlotte? Packard Place has one, the incubator. But I think those places, they're not really, I'm sure you can get space there, but it's not like a WeWork where, like WeWork has a lot more places where, or businesses that are already established, right? More so than startups. Whereas the incubator would, but it's worth asking them, right? To see what their tenants would want.
I guess one thing, if I can jump in here, and John, feel free to add in here, but what we often hear is, I would love to relocate to Matthews, but I can't find space. And so I'll be honest, I'm slightly hesitant if that's the main group that you're marketing to. It's like, great, we can drum up Matthews, we can talk about Matthews, but then if they're not finding anywhere to come into Matthews, is that really a beneficial conversation? So I'm wondering if there's not a topic that appeals to small business owners, period, that is providing value to existing business owners. We can do some heavy marketing to prospective, folks out of the incubator spaces, so that maybe, to your point, Steve, they're seeing that Matthews is a community that supports businesses, so that's going to make them want to look here, but that's not the main push. That's almost like a byproduct of the beneficial information that they're otherwise learning about.
But if I could add on to that, Becky, because prior to you jumping in, I was thinking about if we could get a really good speaker that people would just want to really hear what they have to say. And then tied in with that, we promote Matthews. But people would want to come because somebody's speaking that they go, whether it's an economic person, whether it's, but somebody where people would go, oh yeah, I want to hear what that person has to say. And then we go to talking about Matthews, or somehow having booths, or however small groups that we talked about before, however it is. But I think the hook is something different.
I can reach out to, what are our resources here? We have the community college, right? And they have an entrepreneurship department, right? That they're trying to spool up or get more focus on. I can reach out to them and see if they have speakers or like a list. Or Randy, you're a business owner. Who would you love to hear from?
Well, that'd be someone maybe from even out of town. It's always the speaker from out of town. The well-known name is always perceived to be the most knowledgeable and valuable person rather than someone local. I'm trying to think, but I know we have no budget. We haven't had a budget to be able to pay anybody, and we won't now, I'm sure. So I don't know. I don't know what again, which comes first here, the speaker or the audience that we're trying to attract? I think that we need to consider that. Are we trying to attract business startups? Are we trying to attract existing business owners? Or are we just trying to attract everybody? What we did 2 years ago in 2019 was we got a lot of people who were thinking about starting a business. I believe that's how it ended up. Plus the usual suspects of chamber members. And in the years past, it was probably a little bit of a combination of both of those still. Is that what we still want to try and attract in here, or do we want to go after someone else?
Can I weigh in and just ask a question? It sounds like there's two things going on here. You're wanting to sell Matthews to people outside of Matthews, and you want to people are already in Matthews. Now, the silver line, but I don't think the hook might be those in the know on the silver line saying, hey, here's an opportunity to relocate to Matthews because of the silver line, and for those in Matthews to capitalize on the silver line coming to reposition themselves for future growth. So maybe that's the hook that we really have not discussed with business owners. The town's excited about it, but have we talked to anybody else about it?
John, I like that subject. I think that's a broad appeal that doesn't it affects a few business owners very specifically who may be right around that, but it affects everybody in a general way.
It's going to connect Monroe Road to downtown to the Sportsplex to CPCC, so it's going to touch a lot of people in a lot of different ways. From those who want to live here, for those who want to work here, for those who want to play here. It is going to be a huge catalyst, and you can either participate in this activity or you can ignore it. And I'm just wondering if that's the vehicle at this stage in the game, because now we have an alignment. Well, we have an alignment more so today than we did yesterday. We have a lot of people in the know. People can walk the alignment now. So I'm just wondering, is that an opportunity?
I like it, and it's as good as anything we've come up with. But even regardless, I think it is a good topic. And so we have. Is there a panel of speakers about that subject, or is there one particular, John, that comes to mind who would be the authority, who would be a good draw to address it?
Well, you have to be careful because you have the technical people. You have Andy Mock, who's the project manager, and you have our staff, which are on the more technical side. But I bet you there's somebody out there that knows how to sell the ideation of transportation, the big 30,000 foot, picture of this thing with all the bells and whistles and what it does. I mean, what it did to South End and things like that, and get you ramped up and excited. Not talking about, well, is it going to run down the middle of the street or the side of the street, and can it only turn on a certain radius? I'm wondering who that player might be. It really is that kind of reminds me of Murray with the who's Murray with downtown. Yeah. These guys that can talk in glowing metaphors and adjectives and things like that and get you excited and jazzed up about it, and never dives into the weeds, but says, hey, you know what? This is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you can either get on the train, pardon the pun, or not.
Between now and then, will there be any public sessions where the public will already be well educated about what's coming, or is it likely that this could be a big public session itself?
The public stakeholder meetings have already taken place, and I don't know if they plan to have more. I'm sure they will, but the sort of big discussion for the town was the alignment. So the next question, to my point, is, well, what's that mean to the town? What are the economic impacts to the town? We as a board have made some decisions that are going to impact this town in certain ways. What does that mean? And I don't know that there's going to be any more public discussion about what those impacts are. The fact that just that you're going to see growth and development, and you're going to see the need for services. You're going to see the need for housing. You're going to see the need for of educational support services. Completely unbeknownst to this area right now, it is dynamically going to really change what Matthews is in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Is that provided somebody writes a big check for it, though, too?
I'm sure Biden already has that in his wish list.
Awesome.
Does it make sense to reach out to, I don't even know who would be, there's got to be people that are known within that industry as like the sales reps or what do you call evangelists, right?
Consultants.
Evangelists. I like that.
I mean, there's got to be. I think I know the guy who's the project manager for the alignment.
Well, Andy Mock is our go-to point person that we're dealing with cats. We could always ask him. I don't want to offend him, but I'm not sure that he's.
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy.
Agent,
Yeah, but if we ask him, who's like an evangelist, right?
Well, I think the angle is, the silver line is coming. Will your business be ready? But I think so to me, that's more of like an economic development person that has experience in this area. I think the question for me, and maybe it's just a preliminary conversation with, I don't know if that's someone with Charlotte, I think we can at least start there and see if it's either someone that's on their staff or someone in the community, or if they have a contact in another community that's been through this. I think the question in my mind is, are we far enough along the Silver Line planning process, and is it concrete enough that people will care in 2021? So it feels that, what are they saying, John, like 2030 is what they're hoping for. And everyone's like, wow, that's really ambitious. I think as a business owner, am I thinking 9 years ahead, or am I still trying to survive the pandemic? So I'm curious if we could maybe, pick the brain of somebody with, again, maybe the city of Charlotte or someone like that, of like, are there things for businesses to be doing now that would be a real conversation, or is that maybe a little premature because we're at least a decade away? That's what I'm not sure of.
So is there any sort of advanced preparation that you could begin discussing, which guaranteed along South Boulevard, they were decades in advance of this conversation and getting prepared for this. Again, we have the Sportsplex, which will probably get jump started a little bit even more so. I see your point.
The north building of Dollar General was sold within 24 hours of them coming out publicly with what the route would be. That's not a coincidence.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think most of the plays on real estate for the big money will be done before this event even happens. And then to your point, Becky, there's another 8 years for small businesses to catch up and to be ready. But I think there's still a lot that people in that downtown area can take advantage of, or at least be aware of that. Like Christopher's is about to be a major stop, right? Or even if the message to this business owners in town is, hey, this isn't going to be that big of an impact on you, even though it is, but it's not going to be a big impact on you for another 5 or 8 years, right?
I think rolled up into the messaging though is things are looking up for this area. They've been good here for a long time, but it's going to could get even better for businesses. Even if you are not in the path of Silverline, if you don't already own property adjoining that, because of the greater connectivity, the additional development that can take place, things are looking up. I mean, that can just be a bullish message to be able to share.
Yeah.
When we all need to hear bullish messages.
I like the topic. I think it's something that it could attract. It serves all the business owners in town to at least have an idea of what's going on. Those looking and moving in, those that are here, those that are looking and moving out. Mm-hmm. And it's something we can put some meat on the bones of in terms of, I don't think we need somebody to sell the idea. Sorry. Little bastard. I don't think we need to sell the idea or somebody to come up to sell the idea.
I'm glad this is being recorded.
Is it? Oh, damn. Harley. Oh, great. Sorry. Yeah. Where was I? Freaking dog. It would be cool if somebody came in who had been in a area that did get like one of the lines and said, hey, here's what worked for us, or here's who won, here's who took advantage of it, and here's how you can, right? There's got to be a bunch of other ways other than the first two that come to my mind, right? In terms of how to leverage that kind of infrastructure coming in. There's got to be other places around that. Where did the blue line over in South Park, like towards the south end of South Park, or not South Park, but what do you call that area Pineville. Down where Pineville. The blue line at Pineville? Yeah.
Well, Pineville is we're still regretting it because Pineville vetoed to have any access to the line.
Yeah.
And they are regretting it today. And I mean, there are some really good stories about those who are willing to sort of participate and those that didn't want to participate. And the fact is that a decade is not a long planning period for not necessarily small businesses, but larger businesses, to acquire land, to develop that land, to build a building. The Silver Line could open up, like with Family Dollar, more industrial users and things like that. And then you got the access to the airport. So, this could be a way of pitching and selling Matthews. And just because it's a decade away or a little bit longer, that goes by really, really quickly.
It does. Hey, for Brett, Marcy, Cindy, what do you think of this topic then for a subject?
I like the topic a lot. I'm trying to think if we had a keynote speaker around that, and then what other things can we touch upon in other areas, but I am sold on the topic. That's my thought.
Usually the event's only like an hour, right? Yeah.
You're on mute, Randy.
What do you got, Brett?
I think I like the topic as well. I think that part of it for us, at least, is putting butts in seats. And I think that this is like a key hot topic type of item that people are going to want to hear about. I don't know if it's, all business people, maybe what we're trying to attract, but also we'll probably get several people, nosy neighbors like myself who would be interested in that. But I think that does at least, because I feel like part of the challenge for us is always going to be about getting people there. And I think with the timeliness of this as a topic, it is something that makes it an easier sell for getting people there. I think we do. I think the biggest challenge is tying in, who's the speaker and what exactly are they covering? Who is the authority on, all things economic in regards to this is the train line. So I don't know who that is, but I do think that if we can find someone with that type of expertise, I do think it makes it a much easier sell, at least for getting people to show up.
I can't imagine that Katz hasn't archived testimonials from a person living in South End, from a restaurant owner in South End, from an attorney from South End, all different walks of life that sort of can talk to these stories that could be interwoven that someone presents in some form or fashion. But I mean, there's got to be that out there that, someone says, well, what's in it for me? Well, I'm a restaurant owner. Well, let's talk to an experience of a restaurant owner on the South Boulevard line. I'm just a professional white collar. Let me talk to a person who lives along the line that commutes to downtown Charlotte every day and what that means to them. It's there. I don't know how to pull this all together, but I can't imagine that Katz, with its brain trust, hasn't already sort of thought through this and has pulled things together. And something we could piggyback on. And maybe that's a discussion with them as well. And if we had the time, I bet you $10, you could probably do like we did as the board and other people, is get a little ride on this train at some appointed time to really sell this thing. Is like, that would be a real bells and whistle winner too.
Yeah. Do any of you guys know Gaines Brown?
That's a marketing company.
Pardon me?
They're marketing, aren't they?
No, Gaines Brown's a human being.
Oh, okay.
He was really the pioneer in South End development. Somebody like him would be great. Another interesting person that's been around forever is David Furman.
Oh, yeah.
He certainly has ridden that train, as it were, on all sides, including uptown. Mm-hmm. But there are some guys out there like Gaines and like David. I don't know Gaines well. David, I know well.
I would be,
and I think Tony Presley, was also kind of one of those South End, real pioneers.
Tony Presley, good. My only fear with David Furman is, I like David, I know him in passing, is that he is the guru of density, and you bring David Furman to the town of Matthews, and I think a lot of people would shriek if they knew what David has done. Awesome work for downtown Charlotte. And I appreciate everything he's done, but it may be a little over the top for Mathonians if David Furman came to town and said, guess what the Silver Line's going to bring you?
Right. Well, he's building the micro apartments in South End. So,
yeah.
But I think out of this, I'm sure we can build out some speakers, or speaker or speakers. Becky, do you have any contacts at Katz, or does anybody have contacts at Katz?
Yeah, we definitely have lots of staff contacts. We're in regular communication with Katz. I guess I may be interested in trying a different route through the city's economic development office.
Okay.
And seeing if you're coming at it from that angle. I may want to run that rabbit first.
Okay.
Because I think they're going to have a different viewpoint than anyone from Katz. So let me start there. I think if I remember correctly, they've got a assistant city manager who came in, and that's one of her areas. And then obviously there's a lot more, worst case scenario. I know we can probably get some folks through the County Economic Development Office. I think they're going to know the lay of that land a little bit better than we do. So if we don't have any luck getting in touch with the city's ACM, we may be able to go through the county and get to the same end result. So I have not had contact with her. When Hazen's dealing with the city, it's normally city manager to town manager. So she's not somebody that we deal with on a regular basis, but we at least know she exists, so we can start there.
Gotcha.
This could be a combination too of having a speaker for 15 minutes inspiring about the vision and what this can do, and then maybe a 3-person panel discussion of what it means for Matthews. John, maybe that's where we bring in the town people to talk about what's the map actually in the town, the specifics to help. So big picture vision person, more details in a panel discussion where we kind of keep a rapid fire among the 3 or 4 panelists about what it means for us here more specifically. So it could be that combination.
You go from macro to micro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. It always seems to work better when we have more than one speaker.
You just keep things moving. It keeps it more interesting.
Yeah.
And nobody speaks for more than 20 minutes.
No.
Oh, scratch Lee Myers off.
You're not on mute, Joe.
I know. It's okay. Lee would laugh too.
Yep.
He would. I mean, he would have been an ambassador. He would have been the big picture person on this a few years ago, at least, I know, wouldn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we did Matthew's Station, and then when we talked about the Sportsplex, I mean, there was always that high-level evangelist, to Steve's point. You know, we never dove into the weeds, and it was that big picture, and that's the hook. And then people want a little bit more. You start diving down a little bit, but and I think to Becky's point is, it really doesn't need to become that from a different angle, because it's really not about the transportation aspect of it. It's the economic development that it brings. And that just perforates through all levels of people and professions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, is it going to benefit me personally? No, but I can see how it's going to benefit the area. It can get me excited and inspired to either keep my business in Matthews or maybe reinvest in growing my business in Matthews, because of this connectivity that it brings.
Yeah. All right. So is that the move forward? Becky, are you able to reach out to them to see if they have any speakers or ideas based on kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah. I'll start with the ACM, and I don't think, I want to say she's maybe been there 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So I don't know that she's got the history, that kind of saw this thing through, but to at least see if we can pick her brain and who's maybe, on the ground in the community who saw some of this through, or maybe there's some folks deeper in their staff that don't show up on websites that lived through some of this. And I'd be curious if we're make some headway on that. Are there actual small business owners from that part of the city who, put a plan into action, who were very proactive and now are seeing some gains from it? Those might be some nice testimonials of what they did that worked that could potentially be repeated here.
And some who are not brewery owners.
That are not what? That
are not brewery owners. Because that's kind of the cliche, isn't it? It's the breweries that open up all along the line. Mm-hmm. My daughter is expecting a big brewery to be put where Family Dollar is because of that.
That would be a big brewery.
That would be a big brewery. Are we united about this around the theme then? We feeling good about that?
I think so.
Are we talking about this as being a lunch event, which is what we've done before? I mean, so if we're decoupling from partnering with the chamber, we can do it however we want, it sounds like.
I don't think we were decoupling from them, but rather...
From their event.
Was that?
From their event is what I thought I was hearing.
I thought it was, we're Thursday, they do first Thursday is that night, and then Saturday is were they doing the expo and all that other stuff together?
Well, but what I was hearing was I wasn't sure that was even going forward. Maybe I misunderstood that.
I didn't hear that. I think it's going forward. I think it's just making sure that the initiative of EDAC doesn't get lost in what the chamber's trying to do. So, I think if there's an opportunity to keep them hooked up in some way, and it's one larger event, and if somebody can come to all of it, great. If not, then hopefully they'll still come to ours. I think that's okay. I think it was just not taking a back seat to what they're wanting to do, just making sure that interests are
okay. Got it. But probably the marketing for it needs to be done together in some way.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't appear too disjointed then.
I would think so. I thought we were doing something that started at like 12 or 1. It goes through the early afternoon. And then rolls, maybe it's an hour and a half. Because I think before it was 11:30 to 1, right? Historically.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So if we did the same timing, but started it at, noon, and then people can do what they want if they want to go roll out to downtown Matthews for First Thursday. Or we start it later in the afternoon, right? I'm open to. I don't know how much time people have to give.
Well, why don't we pursue the speakers around the topic first?
Yeah.
It can be done at noon, or it could be done. You're talking about either noon or done late afternoon, so that it segues into the first Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of the ideas we're bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
Just tough to pull people along for that long of a duration. That's definitely something that needs to be considered of.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We just go like 12 to 1:30 or 2.
And then you invite people to come back in the evening for
yeah, if they want. Yeah.
It's not like a convention and everything's planned out.
Yeah.
And for days on end and everything is activated.
Yeah. Or we could do, what if we said, hey, here's the event from, let's say it's 12 to 1:30, and then said, what if we rented one of those buses or those, the trolleys, John, that we got in the past and what if we did an hour ride of kind of showing where the Silver Line would go?
Well, it would only be a matter of how many people showed up, because the trolley only holds so much. But yes, you could run them the route from where it enters Matthews and exits Matthews, I suppose. I mean, it's just sort of a lucky strike extra. There might be some people who would be interested in something like that. Other people that sell insurance probably could care less.
Yeah, no, sure, and they can go to First Thursday or go write some policies, right? I'm thinking of a bridge between the two.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll make a note and see if we can, as we get closer, I guess we can define that or nix it.
I think I tell you, it's an interesting idea, because when we ran the trolley, and the bulk of the people that got on it actually were from out of the area. But when people got on it that lived in Matthews, they didn't even know half the stuff existed.
Yeah.
You pull through North End, they're like, I didn't know this was here. Or, they didn't know there was a parking lot behind Town Hall. The simplest things. So I think people would be surprised if you entered Matthews on the north side of Monroe Road, up by the smokehouse or the barbecue place, and came on down and actually snaked in through Industrial Drive or came down through the lumberyard or whatever. People really realized that half the stuff was there. It's pretty amazing that people who live here all their lives don't even know where Uden Pottery is and things like that.
I have a feeling if we did 2 or 3 laps, right, people could, hang out at, I don't know, one of the restaurants downtown or bars until your time, right? I think it could add value for people to check out. Okay. Does anybody have any other ideas or concerns or inspiration?
I'm tired with the inspiration now. I'm done. From last night to today, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, last night you impressed a bunch of Boy Scouts. I'll tell you that.
Oh, really? That might be the only people.
Well, they're just cause a lot of discussion.
I'm good at that. All right. I think you're all running out of steam now.
Yep. All right. Anybody have anything else? We're good. All right. Well, I thank you kindly. Let me just check. Is that everything off the agenda? Whoa. Board development projects update. Holy cow, reports. Oh, yeah. Good grief.
Let me just update this group on two things. You all have seen the federal stimulus that was passed and the inclusion of funding for local governments. And so they are still finalizing those numbers, but we are anticipating that the town will receive somewhere in the neighborhood of $9.7 million from the federal allocation. For perspective, that is equivalent to close to 40% of our annual budget. So that is an enormous amount of money. I'll be honest, full disclosure, when I heard local governments were going to be included, I think in my brain, I was like, oh, maybe we'll get $100,000. No one was expecting that size of a check. So it will come in two tranches, as they refer to it. We expect the first tranche, which will be about half of the funds, within about 60 days. And then we'll get the second half approximately 12 months later. So we are still waiting for details from Treasury. They are going to be the final source on interpreting what the legislation actually means for how the funds can be spent. But there are some broad categories that were included in the legislation, and we believe it's going to allow for some lost revenue replacement for the town, being able to provide services that we were not able to provide because of COVID. There are also some allowances in the legislation for funding for local businesses, for even individuals, if a locality wanted to go down that path of providing those programs and being an additional funding source for local businesses. So, of course, what this group did with the CARES Act prior, I'm sure that as word continues to get out that this money is coming, we will likely be inundated with questions regarding whether or not we're going to be providing another program like that. So all we can really say at this point in time is it's too soon to tell. We will have through 2024 to spend those funds. So there's not a huge rush to get them out the way that we had with the CARES Act funding. So we are obviously watching very closely and waiting for Treasury guidelines to come out, certainly from staff's perspective. And, it's all going to come down to what the board wants to spend the money on. But we want to make sure that we're, covering our lost revenues, that if there are operational things that we can do that we have had to put on hold, we're bluntly hoping that those are able to take priority, but that's a lot of money. So,
can you repeat that? Did you say 9.7 million?
9.7 million.
I mean, is now the time during that whole CARES Act? We talked about the general marketing, economic and specifically economic development marketing, and it was kind of like not enough time, not enough funds, but is now kind of the time to take advantage of really thoughtfully putting a program together to market to site selectors and C-suite people and those, something significant.
So I guess the only thing I can say right now is we just have to wait to see what the wording looks like. So from the preliminary wording, it's likely going to be limited to what you can demonstrate you would have done had it not been for COVID. So if it wasn't something that was, really talked about or presented or kind of on the books, it's going to be a harder lift to get that to be something that would be defensible through our reporting that we would be required to do for the federal government. It's
not a new initiative budget. It's a recovery and go back and fix what you lost kind of budget.
From what we can tell. From
what you can tell.
So, there are a lot of funding options from what we can see in the federal stimulus for small businesses. PPP was expanded, EIDL was included. There's a specific pot of money just for restaurants, and I think bars are included in that as well. I know restaurants were, entertainment venues. So it does feel like if you are a business that is needing some assistance, you're not going to necessarily be needing to wait on the town of Matthews to figure out how we're going to put forth our $9.7 million to use. We would want businesses to obviously pursue those other funds. So I guess I say all that to say more's coming. There's going to be a lot to get through. It will, of course, include board action and board approval. Any of it will. But this is really being categorized as like once in a generation, once in a lifetime funding. And so we want to be really thoughtful about highest and best use to the greatest extent that we can with the funding. So you could have knocked us over with a feather when we saw the amounts. So
what's Mecklenburg County and City of Charlotte getting?
I don't have. I don't have it in front of me. I think they were at least over like $100 million.
I had not seen anything like that. That's
So, wow. So for towns like us, it's based on a population formula.
Yeah.
And I will say we are well positioned compared to many other localities across the state because we don't have utilities, and so a lot of the pressures that other localities are dealing with right now in their budgets are due to, in many cases, the fact that they've been providing utilities to their communities. They couldn't shut them off. Folks weren't able to pay their bills or weren't paying their bills. And so that was really putting a hit on their funding. And we've also been largely insulated being adjacent to Charlotte. We have not seen, our sales tax is doing really, really well right now. And we were expecting it to not be doing well. So all in all, it puts us in a really good position that we're not desperate for those funds just to balance the books. So hopefully we can put it to good use. So more to come, but just, with this group being involved in the CARES Act funding prior, just wanted you to know that that's there. And
you seem to be inferring we could get the band back together again.
Bluntly, I'm hoping that we can focus on our town operations. There are a lot of things that, funding police officers. Is there a way that, we haven't been able to do that to the extent that we wanted to? Is there a way to do that with these funds while being in compliance? So, but you start talking that kind of money and a lot of people are going to come out with their own ideas about how.
There's some big decisions to be made there.
So yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. Okay. So yes, so stay tuned. The second one, it was approved by our board last night, so the timing did not work out to bring it to this group ahead of time, but just wanted to keep you informed. So staff was contacted by Mecklenburg County Economic Development Office, where a business located in Charlotte that they've been around for a long time, but this is sort of a new arm for them. They were looking for a locality to partner with to help them sort of fulfill a proof of concept for the life cycle of their business, their product that their business makes. And so the company's called Terraloam, Terraloam, and they have developed the first biodegradable medical gown. So it is, it's passed the most stringent levels of testing. I've learned all about this. I didn't know there were different levels of testing for medical gowns, but apparently there are. And, but instead of going into landfill and being plastic and sitting there forevermore, it completely decomposes and turns into soil, organic material. So they're a really interesting company. They are committed to local North Carolina production. So they had the opportunity to produce it overseas cheaper. They are making sure that all the manufacturing stays in the United States, and it's currently out of Wadesboro. But they needed a little bit of space for doing some testing for the composting to make sure that it truly does break down in composting. And then the idea is that the compost will eventually help grow the corn that is then processed to make the gowns, and roundy they go. So, and just for the record, any soiled gown is handled through state regulations, and it's incinerated. So any gowns that they're dealing with they're not soiled. They're not considered medical waste or biohazards or anything like that. So they wanted a community that had an active farmers market. They wanted a community that had active community gardens, and we fit the bill. So we have found a little space for them on some unused property that we own. They're going to set up the composting for 12 months to fulfill that process. So the way I've been really looking at it is it's like a business incubator or a co-op space to give them the opportunity to fulfill this side of it without having to provide the infrastructure that you normally would with a roof or something like that on a building. So they can't promise us anything, but they are looking for a community to really build a relationship with. And they expect that within fairly short order, they will be looking to build headquarters that would be corporate headquarters, as well as the manufacturing facility. And they have committed to giving Matthews a serious look to be the location for that facility, because they are growing to love us as they partner with us. So in the meantime, they plan to grow flowers with the compost. They'll be donating the flowers, doing some beautification efforts around town. They won't make any money off of the facility, so it allows them to locate on our property without there being any kind of a conflict. But that was approved by the board. So it may go nowhere, but it may be kind of the foundation of something that could turn into a pretty cool development for the town.
That's awesome.
Sounds like a really great PR pitch I'm serious. I'm very serious. Because it's kind of a project for a year that could be followed. And this, it's very topical of, what is happening with, it's A, entrepreneurship, B, the whole ecological side of things. I mean, it sounds like a really great pitch. I don't know who does the pitching for the city, or town, but it seems great. I don't know.
Pitching as far as
Relations, like story,
like this along the way to be able to tell the story.
Well, making either. I mean, there's a million. So documenting everything. So if the pitch doesn't happen till the end of the cycle, but I would even assume that you would, probably try to get maybe even business or business environmental writers interested who could start following the project and, decide, with their editors or whomever it is, if this is, a story that's told over the course of a year, or is this a story that's told after the year is over, to, kind of look at what happens, what the practical things that happen when we try to take the things in our life and make them, recyclable in the 100%, 360 degree process. But
yeah, I forgot what they said. I think it's every year something like 17 and a half Empire State Buildings worth of medical gowns end up in landfills. And in U.S. medical gowns, I think Atrium uses something like 50,000 a week, just Atrium. And so only about 10% have to be incinerated. The other 90%, they switch them out for every patient. So many of them just go directly into the landfill. So even if they're not composted, they're still breaking down in the landfill.
Right. And why I think this is something kind of to make hay with right now is because we are all extra super duper tuned into, medical gear.
Yep.
It's PPE. It's everything we've been talking about for a year.
Yep.
And I have actually seen a lot of writing on, all the face masks that are all of a sudden littering our landscape and things like that.
When does that start, Becky?
We've got a couple little internal hurdles that we'll be dealing with in the next couple of weeks, but then they would be out there staking the property, and they are going to use just scraps from their cutting floor to begin with, because it's an entire process change in the hospitals for diverting these gowns to them to be able to collect the unsoiled gowns. So that's not going to start for many, many months. So their scraps off the cutting floor will be able to happen much quicker. So they were wanting to get started as quickly as possible to take advantage of the season as long as possible. So we don't have an exact date, but it was just approved last night. So it'll be happening fairly quickly.
And let me know. I'm happy to just kind of help out, and because I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out if they have any PR support. But I just want y'all to have an ear to it from the beginning, because like I said, it could be an interesting kind of full cycle story.
I love it. It's not something we had really thought about from that regard. So I was just happy the board approved.
Yeah. Because it also has that. I'm sitting here thinking of angles. It's the way my brain works. But the whole fact that we come from historically a textile, generation place. It's fascinating that we're kind of taking that to the next level technologically.
I love that. That's a great angle too. Let me get with them and kind of see where that, like, their website just went live last week. Like the manufacturing just started. They had dropped off like 50,000 to Atrium as like a test run, if you will. So this is like at the base ground floor of them, and certainly hope to see them super successful, whether they Landon Matthews or not, it's a really, really interesting business model and product. And I think exactly to your point, it ticks a ton of boxes of something pretty cool to have maybe right in our backyard. So yeah, let me get with them and make sure we've got everything clarified on our end with some of the logistics of getting them going on our site. And then see, I don't know why they would be opposed to it, but just kind of check in with them and see where they're at. So I'm done. Sorry, that was longer than a few minutes.
No, you're fine. Chamber update, we'll skip that. Quad update. John, do you have a quad update?
We actually had a quad meeting yesterday at 11 a.m. and all 4 towns were represented, which is good news because Indian Trail has kind of come back to the table and is engaging in the conversations. We did a roundtable yesterday of all the public works directors and the transportation people, and also Dana and Susan gave their pitch about all the projects we're working on and the new trail, and everybody talked about the same. And clearly was quite evident that Matthews is the 800-pound gorilla in the room with all the projects going on and the needs that we have, et cetera, et cetera. But everybody has the same problems: finding the money, fire, EMS, new stations for this, new employees, et cetera, et cetera. But it was kind of a nice, refreshing. Everybody went around the table and talked about all the things they're doing, what they're doing. We haven't had that opportunity. As far as projects for Quad, that really wasn't sort of talked about, something we could do as a joint workforce. Maybe they need to start talking about economic development again as a group. But right now, it's just kind of keeping those lines of communication open between the various towns. And that's been really the part there that's been very important at this stage.
Okay. Excellent. And Becky, I guess you've done your staff report? Becky?
She's nodding her head, yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
She's done.
I was looking at the agenda. All right. Is anybody have anything else?
I wanted to ask, what are we going to do about interviewing? We have some applicants. We have 4 spots to fill. So maybe we can discuss this offline. Then everybody needs to know about that. But I would like to work on getting those spots filled.
Okay. Do you want me? Can I call you tomorrow morning?
Sure.
And Cindy, kind of to that point, was asking. She's trying to recruit some folks to also get in some additional applications. So. Cindy, I saw your email earlier, and I didn't have an immediate answer regarding what's a good, deadline. So since we technically take applications at any point in time, I guess I'd defer to Steve regarding when we might be hoping, if we're going to include them in this round of evaluation, when you would be hoping to receive any additional applications. Is it like a week from now, 2 weeks?
What do we do? I think April 1st is too soon. What do we do? April 15th?
That's pretty soon.
Right? 3 weeks? No, I mean to get applicants and then we're done April 30th. Because there are 5 in there right now, right, Lori?
Yeah, but those applicants were, as Lori pointed out, some of them are very old. They go back to mid-2019 or so.
Not their age, but the applicant age.
I stand corrected. The application is very old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys wanted to, Cindy can personally
get people to apply, which would be great. We can re-advertise to see if we can get any more folks in. Do that by whatever you said, April 15th, and then go from there if you'd like.
We do that.
Yeah, so the people that ask me, like, hey, how do I get involved? Is there an application they send to you, Lori, or what?
Yeah, I've sent one to you in the past. I can send you a link if you want. It's on the town's website. It is something that you can have people contact me and I'll send it out to them.
Okay.
We're happy to take them all year round. And then we also obviously advertise at certain points when we're looking for mass applicants.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So if I find somebody interested in applying, they can contact you for the application? Is that okay?
I will send out the application to everybody on EDAC now, just so you guys will have it. If you would like to just send it on to them, you can, or you can have them contact me.
All right, got it.
Directly.
Yeah.
And Cindy, it'll be the same link that I sent you the other week in an email. It's a downloadable form from the website. So that'll be the same form.
Okay.
But where's the form? I think the link, I'm looking at it now. The link that you gave me takes you to the advisory boards and committees. But
there's a link in there that has the application.
Where's that though?
Should be it's the first paragraph. Hang on a sec. Let me pull it up.
Oh, I see. All right. That's a little hidden. Okay.
I have a question. Would it be a lot of trouble just to resend it out?
No, not at all.
Okay. Because I've been doing a lot of stuff with my email, and I'm afraid I'm going to go in and go, it's here somewhere. So.
Yeah, no problem. I will send it out.
Perfect. Thank you. Today. Okay.
If
Does that work for everybody?
Interested in things other than EDAC, feel free to tell them to apply too, because we're always looking for various committee applicants.
Is that too aggressive, April 15th for a deadline, and then we make a decision or interview by April 30th?
It may be a bit aggressive with an Easter holiday somewhere in there too. Just saying.
All right, so then May 1st deadline?
Yeah. Because then we have a meeting May 25th.
That's true.
So
the more difficult part is you guys arranging the interview process. So, we can do the application time period as long or as little as you'd like, but then you guys need to arrange for what I'm assuming will be continue to be Zoom interviews.
Okay. Let's do that then.
So,
May 1st.
And May 1st, so tell me, you guys will start interviewing on May 1st?
I think we can start now,
Saturday,
or as soon as they start coming in, but the deadline would be...
Let's call it April 30th is the deadline. May 1st is a Saturday. So April 30th is the deadline. We start interviewing the first week of May.
And we can interview earlier as they come in, too.
Well, I was going to say 6 weeks just to get the applications kind of wastes some time.
Okay.
And just knowing, especially if Becky's going to be involved in the interviews, just with the scheduling of things, doing a one-off interview here and there might be more difficult than getting everybody in and then trying to make a schedule for groups. And Becky can certainly say differently if something else would work better for her.
The schedule is always a little tight. It really doesn't matter. I'll make it work.
I'm thinking though, we can interview before the deadline, right? Because you have possibly 5 stale ones, but
it's better to line them up consecutively
and just bang them out.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want. Lori, are you suggesting that have the deadline earlier, like Friday, April 16th or something like that?
That is exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Friday, April 16th is the deadline for applications to be submitted. We could begin interviews depending upon how many we have the following week.
Perfect.
That sounds lovely.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I do not.
Cindy's about to hit mute. Hit unmute.
There we go. I did hit it first time. I did something weird. I just want to circle back to something because it's been rolling around in the back of my brain with the funding coming into the city of Matthews. And I don't know if this is even an appropriate thing to put in the pot, but right before COVID hit, we were having a lot of discussion around the hotel. And some of that discussion was that the next step would need to be to have an evaluation done of land or where it should go, and that costs money. And I might be totally in left field in that this has nothing to do, but I'm kind of going, okay, we have money coming in. Is there something we can do to investigate, because it's going to be a financial commitment? And I'm just throwing that out. We don't have to do anything with it. I'm just curious.
And that was something that we were talking about doing.
Yeah, no, I know.
It sounds like the spirit of it, from what Becky described, is this money's for initiatives or things that we would normally have been doing but couldn't do.
Right.
Because of COVID.
And that's what we were right there.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, Marcy, Brett, and I, had the last meeting we had before COVID hit, if I recall correctly, and you would have to help me, Marcy and Brett, was that you had to evaluate whether or not it's like some type of feasibility study.
Well, didn't we have Tom Murray and one of his staff people come in and talk to us?
Well, and then the meeting got canceled. Later discussions got canceled because of COVID. And we also had a discussion at one of our EDAC meetings that, well, we just need to table all this because of the climate. But I don't see why we can't bring it back in. I mean, either we're going to think about doing it or we're not.
I think it's worth pulling back up.
Yeah, I think, how do I want to say this? I think it's perfectly okay to reignite initiatives that were happening prior to COVID. If this group feels like you're ready to start those things again, whether or not it would qualify for funding is, I think, a completely different conversation. A, qualify, and then B, is that the desired thing to use the funding for? Those are questions that we just can't answer today. But if it is something, I know it's something that came from our town board, or maybe it was a prior town board at this point, that was interested in investigating that. So I still think that it's worthwhile, if this group wants to take it on, to put that forward as something that you would want the board to fund, and then the board can figure out if and how that's funded. That could be through just regular general fund dollars, if it's something that they find to be worthwhile. So I wouldn't, I appreciate where you're coming from. I wouldn't let the 9.7 drive the conversation so much as, is that the right initiative for the town to pick back up at this time, and let that be the driving force.
Well, via email, I communicated with a friend of mine who's in the business of evaluating and doing appraisals and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I just want to throw out there is, she said, now is the time, because it takes 18 to 24 months just to build it. And they think the hotel business is going to come back in 3 years back to where it was in 2019. So I'm just sharing information. And I think that we have to decide as a group if we want to continue down that path or not.
I think it's worth discussion.
I think it's worth the discussion. I believe it was Mayor Higdon who had initially championed that thought for us.
It was Paul Bailey, actually.
Was it?
It was what?
It started with Paul Bailey. It was the prior board.
Then I stand corrected.
But to your point, Randy, Mayor Higdon has also expressed interest in that on a number of occasions. So I don't think it's something that went by the wayside when administrations changed.
Got it.
Can we throw this on the agenda for will that be the May meeting?
May 25th.
and then we can take it up from there. All right. Anybody have anything else? Motion to adjourn. Brett, I saw that. Nice look. Marcy, thank you for the second. Excellent. We are adjourned. Cheers, guys.